Look, they matched her offer, and in her clause it said that she
got no choice.
If they match, she has to resign. So the same thing happens like in the NFL, same thing happens in the NBA. Like if they want to keep somebody, they have the right to match it. That's normally in most contracts when you're talking about sports and athletics. And in this situation, Bellator put together a fantastic offer, and what that did was that allowed her to get paid. She got paid a lot more money. Look, guys.
And she was already making a lot of money.
John and I sat up here a while back and said how much money she was making. We're like, how much damn money is she making? She was making a ton. Bellator came ahead and tried to put in a better offer to get her away from there to fight Chris Cyborg. They matched it. It's a win-win. So look, when we say, it's a win-win for her. It's a win-win for the PFL too, because honestly, maybe they didn't want to spend the money, but guess what? They have someone who is now has some name recognition. They have some other guys that are in there that have name recognition. But I think honestly, with all this controversy over her contract, she's probably got the biggest name in that organization right now.
No doubt about it.
You know, I mean, you could say Pettis. You know, say Pettis, but
different part of their careers.
I agree.
She's the number one. You know, if you look at media-wise, people talking about her, social media stuff, Kayla Harrison is the number one fighter they have.
If you walk down the street, though, John, do you recognize her or do you recognize Pettis first?
Well, I recognize her. She's better looking than Pettis. Just kidding.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no.
Kayla Harrison, she's going to kick my ass for saying that.
As far as if you're talking about fans and stuff, you know, let's be honest. Anthony is he's well known and stuff, and there's people that recognize him. But you can say the same thing with Rory McDonald. Look at the best fighters in the PFL. If you're going to say who's the best fighters there, well, two of them, going to be Kayla Harrison and Ray Cooper. Yeah, there's people that are not going to recognize them, but that's just part of the marketing, and that's what the PFL is working towards as far as garnering that. That's why they paid her that money. They didn't want to let her go and let her go somewhere else and have people then say, "Oh, she's great," when they had her and they had the ability to keep her. So, look, I sent her a message and I told her, "Hey, man, congratulations." As as we talked about in the past, look, this is what it's about, and I know that you, as a person, and I look, she is a competitor. She wants to prove to people, I am the best. That is burning inside of her, and I think she has the feeling that she's not going to be able to do that based upon the PFL matching that offer, but I think she will. I think, eventually the PFL, it's a possibility that, instead of the fights happening in Bellator or the fights happening in the UFC, the PFL will bring those people over that, they'll happen in the PFL maybe someday. Maybe it'll be a one-off where, you get to borrow a fighter or something like that.
Borrow? I know what you mean.
Yeah. But, Josh, you were very smart, and we talk about it all the time. This is about setting yourself up for life.
Yeah.
And that's what she's done now. She's set. And to sit there and say, "Oh, that it's, she should have just walked." She doesn't have the ability to walk.
No.
All right. They matched the offer. So that's part of the contracts. But Bellator, in a strange way, just benefited, Kayla, in the fact that they just bumped her pay way up.
Yeah.
And good for her. That's what it's supposed to be. This is prize fighting. You are fighting for a prize. Sometimes, in your opinion, that prize is your ego and to show people. Sometimes it's the money going in your bank account, but it's prize fighting, and I'm glad she's getting paid.
Let me explain. I'll give you guys another example. Like what happened here. Gilbert Melendez was wasn't having issues, but was like he was up on his contract for one of his last fights in Strikeforce, and the UFC had already owned the business. They bought Strikeforce.
Yeah, I was going to say, the UFC owned their contract.
Yeah, owned their contracts. But Gilbert was on his last fight or something like that. He ended up going to Bellator.
That's right.
And they put in a huge offer for him. Well, then he turned and went back to the UFC and said, "Hey, this is what they offered me." They matched it. He got paid a ton of money.
Good for him.
A ton of money. Yeah. That's my thing, guys. Like, I'm not saying that fighters should leave the UFC. When we talk about that, I'm not trying to talk people into leaving. I'm trying to talk them into figuring out what their real worth is. And that may ruffle some feathers with them at the UFC. That may do that. But you guys got to understand, I don't think so. If you're the talent that you believe you are, and you're the talent that they know you are, then go check and see what Bellator will pay you, what PFL will pay you. Because if you're like someone like an Anthony Pettis, he's probably getting paid more over there. Maybe not when he was champion, but then the rest of his fights, he's probably getting paid more at PFL.
I would bet you that he's making as much money now with the PFL that he ever made with the UFC.
Okay. So I would agree with you. But what Kayla Harrison did here, okay, and like it was out of her, she had no control over whether she stayed or not because they matched. But what she did is she went out and she checked what the UFC offered. She checked and went and see what the Bellator would offer. And then PFL came back and said, you know what? For that amount of money extra, we'll go ahead and just match and keep you. That's all you guys got to do. The UFC will put, even if the UFC was to let you guys go to Bellator or PFL or ONE, okay, and you get a couple wins over there and you start building a name over there as well, now you're like, okay, 3, 4 or 5 fights, go back to the open market and do it again.
Yes.
And check it again. Or stay there and become champion, and once you become champion, then go and do it again. Whatever it is. But whatever you decide to do, Anthony Johnson's a perfect example of that as well. He left because they let him go because he was having problems making weight. He went to the PFL. He never fought for the title, and he told them
World Series of Fighting at the time.
World Series of Fighting at the time. He never fought for the title, but he did beat guys like Andrei Arlovsky and other fighters, okay? And he went out there and beat him. And when he went out there and beat him, he came back and they said, hey, we'll sign you. He stayed in the
signed
UFC.
Him for a lot more money.
A lot more money. I want you guys to remember, he was fighting guys like Vitor Belfort at the time when he was let go or whatever it was to go to World Series of Fighting when he was cut. He came back, signed for a ton more money. Had he stayed in the organization, he wouldn't have been making as much money. He would have never made that much money. He came back for more money. There's a rhyme and reason to do things like this. And look, I hope if you want to be in the UFC, be in the UFC, and I hope you guys stay there. But leverage your ability with these other promotions while they're there, okay, to utilize them and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to see what they're going to pay me and go get some wins over there and then come back and fight maybe for the UFC or fight for PFL or whoever's willing to pay you the most. Anyways. All right. But Kayla Harrison, congratulations on your big contract. I'm happy for you. And, your kids will always be taken care of. That's the benefit of all this. This is awesome. I love it.